How Machiavelli would outsmart modern dating. Brother, let me ask you something that cuts to the bone. Why are you stumbling through the dating world like a blind man in a maze when 5 centuries ago, a brilliant mind already mapped the territory of human nature and power dynamics with surgical precision? You swipe left, you swipe right, you send desperate messages into the digital void, hoping that somehow, someway, authentic connection will emerge from this chaos. But here's the truth that no dating coach will tell you. You're not playing a game of chance. You're engaged in warfare. And like any war, victory belongs to those who understand strategy, not those who rely on hope. Gentlemen, today we're going to explore how Niccolò Machiavelli, the master strategist who decoded the mechanisms of power, influence, and human nature, would approach the battlefield of modern romance. Not with manipulation or cruelty, but with the kind of strategic thinking that transforms boys into men and victims into victors. Look around you. What do you see in the modern dating landscape? Confusion masquerading as choice, endless options creating paralysis, apps designed to keep you scrolling, not succeeding. Men wandering through this digital wilderness like lost souls, carrying their hearts on their sleeves and their insecurities like battle scars. But here's what Machiavelli understood that you don't. Human nature hasn't changed in 500 years. The same drives, the same desires, the same power dynamics that governed the courts of Renaissance Italy govern the coffee shops and dating apps of today. The only difference? You've forgotten the rules of the game. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But what did he really mean? He wasn't advocating for cruelty. He was revealing a fundamental truth about respect, boundaries, and the psychology of attraction that modern men have completely abandoned. Think about it, brother. When was the last time you approached dating with genuine strategy? When did you last consider your own value proposition not as a desperate supplicant, but as a man with options, with standards, with a kingdom of his own to offer? Machiavelli observed the courts of his time and noticed something profound. Those who succeeded in love and politics weren't necessarily the most handsome, the wealthiest, or the most charming. They were the most strategic. They understood timing, they understood leverage. They understood human psychology at its deepest level. Consider this. Machiavelli would look at your dating app profile and ask one simple question. Does this communicate strength or neediness? He would examine your texting patterns and wonder why you respond within minutes, destroying any sense of your own importance or busy life. He would watch you chase after someone who shows lukewarm interest and shake his head at your complete misunderstanding of human nature. Because here's what the old master knew. Attraction isn't logical, it's psychological. It's about power dynamics, scarcity, and the ancient dance of pursuit and resistance that has governed romantic interaction since the beginning of time. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." In the context of modern dating, this is revolutionary. You've been taught to be an open book, to be vulnerable, to share your deepest thoughts and feelings with someone you barely know. But Machiavelli would call this strategic suicide. The master strategist understands that mystery creates desire, not because he's playing games, but because he recognizes a fundamental truth about human psychology. We value what we have to work for. We desire what we cannot easily obtain. We pursue what retreats. But let's be clear, gentlemen. This isn't about manipulation. This is about self-respect. When you make yourself constantly available, when you respond to every text immediately, when you rearrange your entire schedule for someone who barely knows your last name, what are you communicating? Desperation, neediness, a man with no other options. Machiavelli would counsel you to build a life so rich, so purposeful, so demanding of your attention that romantic pursuit becomes just one element of your existence, not the centerpiece. He would remind you that a man with a mission, with goals that extend beyond getting someone to like him, naturally creates the kind of scarcity that generates genuine interest. But here's where most men misunderstand Machiavellian strategy. They think it means becoming cold, distant, emotionally unavailable. This is the thinking of amateurs. Machiavelli was more sophisticated than that. The master knew that true power comes not from hiding your humanity, but from revealing it strategically. Vulnerability is a weapon, but like any weapon, its effectiveness depends entirely on timing and precision. Think of it this way. When everyone around you is desperately broadcasting their insecurities, their neediness, their complete life story within the first conversation, what happens when you reveal a genuine struggle or fear, but only after establishing your strength? It lands with tremendous impact. It creates connection without compromise. Machiavelli would tell you to earn the right to be vulnerable. Demonstrate your capability, your independence, your emotional stability first. Then, when you choose to share something deeper, it's received as a gift, not a burden. Here's where Machiavelli's understanding of human psychology becomes almost supernatural in its accuracy. He recognized that pursuit and retreat create a dynamic tension that keeps relationships alive. In his world, political alliances were maintained not through constant attention, but through strategic withdrawal and re-engagement. Modern men do the opposite. They pursue relentlessly. They text constantly. They make themselves perpetually available. And then they wonder why the spark dies, why conversations become mundane, why someone who seemed interested suddenly grows cold. Machiavelli would observe this pattern and diagnose it immediately. You've eliminated all mystery, all challenge, all sense that your attention is valuable and finite. You've become a beggar in the kingdom of love instead of a king negotiating from a position of strength. The strategic retreat isn't about playing hard to get. It's about being hard to get. It's about having a life so rich with purpose, friendship, adventure, and personal growth that romantic interest becomes something you add to your kingdom, not something you need to complete it. Machiavelli spent considerable time studying his adversaries. He understood that success required not just personal excellence, but a clear comprehension of the battlefield and the other players involved. In modern dating, your competition isn't just other men. It's smartphones providing infinite stimulation, social media creating unrealistic expectations, dating apps offering the illusion of unlimited options, and a culture that has convinced people that commitment is limitation rather than liberation. But let's dig deeper, brother. What kind of men are you really competing against? The majority are operating from scarcity mindset, desperate, needy, willing to compromise their values for a chance at connection. They flood dating apps with generic messages. They accept disrespectful treatment because they fear being alone. Machiavelli would observe this landscape and see what you might be missing. This isn't competition, it's opportunity. When everyone else is racing to the bottom, the man who maintains standards stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. But here's what Machiavelli would recognize. This creates an unprecedented opportunity for the man who chooses to operate differently. While other men are lost in the noise, desperately competing for scraps of attention, you can position yourself as the rare man who offers something genuinely valuable. Presence, purpose, and the kind of emotional stability that has become increasingly rare. The master strategist doesn't compete in races he can't win. Instead, he changes the game entirely. While other men are playing by the rules of modern dating culture, you're operating by timeless principles of human nature and attraction. Machiavelli understood that lasting power comes not from conquest, but from building something worth defending. In the context of relationships, this means creating a life so compelling, so rich with meaning and adventure, that joining it becomes irresistible. This is perhaps the most profound insight the old master would offer modern men. Stop trying to fit into someone else's world. Build your own. Develop your interests, pursue your goals, cultivate your friendships, strengthen your character. Become the kind of man who doesn't need a relationship to feel complete, but who can offer a complete life to someone worthy of joining it. But what does building your kingdom actually look like? Machiavelli would tell you it begins with ruthless self-assessment. What are you bringing to the table right now? Are you physically fit, financially stable? Do you have genuine interests that excite you? Close friendships with high-quality men, meaningful goals, emotional stability? These aren't superficial questions, brother. They're foundational. Machiavelli believed that you cannot govern others effectively until you can govern yourself. You cannot offer someone a place in your kingdom if you haven't built a kingdom worth inhabiting. The kingdom builder understands that romance is the dessert, not the main course. His life is already rich with purpose, achievement, and joy. A romantic partner doesn't complete him. She adds another dimension to an already complete life. Think about it this way. What would Machiavelli say about a man who defines his worth by whether someone texts him back? He would see a peasant begging for scraps from the royal table instead of a king inviting worthy guests to feast in his own castle. But here's the crucial distinction. Building your kingdom isn't about becoming arrogant or dismissive of others. It's about becoming genuinely valuable. It's about developing yourself to the point where you have something real to offer, not just neediness disguised as affection. So here's the transformation, brother. Here's how you apply Machiavellian wisdom to modern dating without losing your humanity or integrity. First, you stop seeing dating as something that happens to you and start seeing it as something you actively direct. You develop standards, not arrogance, but genuine standards based on character, values, and compatibility. When someone shows up late without apology, you address it. When someone cancels repeatedly, you stop making plans with them. Second, you master the art of strategic communication. This doesn't mean playing games. It means communicating from a position of strength rather than neediness. Machiavelli would examine your texting patterns and ask, are you initiating contact 80% of the time? Are you double texting when you don't get responses? These patterns reveal everything about your position in the dynamic. Third, you understand that the right person will appreciate your authentic self, but only after you've demonstrated that authentic self includes strength, purpose, and emotional stability. The transformed man reveals his depth gradually. He shares his struggles, but also shares how he's overcome them or is actively working on them. Fourth, you embrace the concept of selective availability. Your time and attention become valuable because you're investing them in meaningful activities and relationships. This means you have hobbies that genuinely excite you, friends who challenge you, professional goals that drive you. Fifth, you develop what Machiavelli would call strategic patience. You understand that the right connection takes time to develop and that rushing the process often destroys its potential. The man who can delay gratification while building genuine connection will always have an advantage over the man who seeks immediate validation. Gentlemen, here's what Machiavelli would tell you if he could observe modern dating culture. The game hasn't changed, only the battlefield. The same principles that governed attraction and influence in Renaissance Italy govern them today. The man who understands timing, psychology, and strategic thinking will always have an advantage over the man who relies on hope and desperation. But remember this, Machiavellian strategy in dating isn't about manipulation or deception. It's about understanding human nature and positioning yourself as a man worth choosing. It's about building genuine value rather than faking it. It's about operating from strength rather than neediness. Let me be crystal clear about what this transformation requires of you. It requires you to stop seeking external validation and start building internal worth. It requires you to stop chasing and start becoming someone worth pursuing. It requires you to stop hoping someone will complete you and start completing yourself. This isn't easy work, brother. Machiavelli never promised that strategic thinking was effortless. He understood that excellence requires discipline, that power requires responsibility, that influence requires character. You'll need to examine your current dating patterns with brutal honesty. Are you pursuing people who don't reciprocate your interest? Are you accepting treatment you wouldn't tolerate from a friend? Are you compromising your values for the possibility of connection? Consider this. What would happen if you approached your next romantic interaction with the confidence of someone who has options? Not arrogance, not indifference, but the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your own worth and having a life rich enough that romance enhances rather than defines it. The choice is yours, brother. You can continue stumbling through the dating world like a lost traveler, hoping someone will take pity on you and offer directions. Or you can study the map, understand the terrain, and navigate with the confidence of someone who knows exactly where he's going. Machiavelli understood that in any game of power and influence, there are those who react and those who act, those who hope and those who strategize, those who beg and those who command respect through their very presence. Which will you choose to be? The transformation begins with a single decision, the decision to stop operating from scarcity and start operating from abundance. Not fake abundance, not pretended confidence, but the real abundance that comes from building a life worth living and becoming a man worth knowing. The old master is waiting for your answer. But more importantly, so is the man you could become once you stop seeing dating as something that happens to you and start seeing it as something you masterfully orchestrate. Build your kingdom first, gentlemen. Develop your interests, strengthen your character, pursue your goals with relentless focus. The right queen will recognize the quality of your realm and choose to rule beside you rather than above you. That's the Machiavellian way. That's the path to romantic victory that doesn't require compromising your soul or manipulating another human being. That's how you win the game, by changing the rules entirely. Remember, Machiavelli's greatest insight wasn't about conquering others. It was about mastering yourself. The man who can govern his own emotions, direct his own actions, and build his own kingdom will never be at the mercy of someone else's validation. This is your invitation to join the ranks of men who understand that true power in romance comes not from desperate pursuit, but from becoming someone worth pursuing. Not from seeking validation, but from building genuine value. Not from hoping for the best, but from strategically creating the best. The battlefield of modern dating is waiting. But now you have the weapons, the strategy, and the wisdom of history's greatest strategic mind. Use them wisely, brother. Your future self is counting on the decisions you make today.